Good afternoon. It is another episode of BX Live at Lunch, and today the scene looks just a bit different. I am turning this volume down so you guys don't hear that, because I'm pretty sure it's pretty loud for you guys. But this is BX Live at Lunch, and if you guys have any questions, as always, look in the comments below, type the question, we will see it, and we will do our best to respond to you guys live as we discuss kids and nutrition. Kids and nutrition is one of the biggest single topics that we get on a regular basis, and we probably hit this every other month, about a parent asking us what should we do about our kids, or my kid sneaks food out of the pantry at nighttime, or how do I get my kid to like vegetables, and all these things we're going to do our best to address and give you some tools to answer them in the beginning, and then we have some other things that might be inserted into the conversation, so you guys stay tuned with us. Today is Lexi's first time on BX Live at Lunch.
Hi.
And actually, I'm pretty sure now I need to readjust the Instagram handles at the bottom, because Zach is not 4F Lifestyle and I'm not Hennigan Fitness. But so we have Thomas, Zach, me, I'm Jason, and then we have Lexi today. This is our BX Live at Lunch crew. So we're going to start out. I'm going to give Lexi the first go at the floor. Lexi, any points that you'd like to bring up when it comes to kids and nutrition, and then we'll go off of that. And if you guys have questions, as always, type them down below.
Yeah, so one thing that you might hear often is to eat across the rainbow. So when you're designing your plate, think about trying to get different colors, maybe red from some strawberries and then orange from some carrots. This is important because it gets your child the different vitamins and minerals they'll need in order to grow healthy and have their bones and muscles develop properly.
Like the fruits and vegetables, that's the key thing that we hear most. Actually, I don't think the question is how do I get my kid to eat? We get that from time to time, but like how do I get my kids to eat fruits and vegetables? But she did make a great point in that try your best from the start to make the plate look like a rainbow. Majority fruits and vegetables, some meat and a protein source, and a grain. Those make really good plates. And some tips for that, like you said, make it look like a rainbow. If they're having trouble eating fruits and vegetables, you could insert them into another food. You can kind of hide them away. But the point is, they need to have as much of a balanced diet as the adult does, if not more. Zach, you got anything you'd like to add to start with this conversation?
Yeah, I would say a lot of times it's going to be easier. I mean, you hear the term or the phrase, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. So It's going to be easier to kind of form their dietary preferences when they're a kid. Yeah. So as opposed to not fighting the battle of, okay, he doesn't like vegetables, I'm not going to give him vegetables. It can take about 9 to 12 times trying different things for you to actually form a valid long-term opinion on them. So getting them to try them multiple times, not after just the first time they say it's bitter, they don't like it, giving up on that, but kind of fighting through it to form those good long-term habits, kind of biting the bullet early to give tough love and form good habits long-term.
I think that's super important, starting from the beginning. And when you start from the beginning, as you said before, like the kids will learn over time. Think about you, right? You may not like vegetables, or you may have a story where your parents didn't force you to eat vegetables, or you ate out all the time, or your family was busy, so vegetables weren't a big part of your life. And just kind of think about what the current repercussions of those are now, and what it would have looked like if your parents had maybe started earlier or made it a bigger, maybe a bigger, I don't want to say an issue, but like a bigger point to teach you how to eat vegetables and make your plate colorful, as Lexi said earlier. I think you had a point you were going to say.
Yeah, I was going to jump in with Zach about don't knock it till you try it, and try it more than once. Maybe that's trying it in a variety of different ways. So maybe the first time you try a vegetable, you try it grilled, and maybe your kid doesn't like it. But that doesn't mean you should give up. Maybe you mix it into a sauce. So for instance, the first time I had zucchini, I didn't like it because I thought it was grilled and it was too charred, but instead I tried putting it into my spaghetti sauce, and it cooks down, makes it soft, adds a little bit of sweetness to the sauce. So that might be an easier way to try to get your children introduced to eating vegetables if they're having a hard time.
Like a garden variety spaghetti sauce.
Yeah.
And I think Thomas brought some research about like the development of kids and some of the things that they should focus on. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to answer a couple other questions we heard earlier in the gym. Give us a little bit more about that development.
Yeah, so to go off of pretty much what everybody's been saying. It's really important, like they said, like at the beginning of their life to get them into different foods. But like the scientific side is both culture and environment, like so where kids are raised, how they are socially, and then like how the culture of like the household is all really important. So if you start like even before they really have any kind of thoughts to themselves, it's really important those first couple months that you have a kid, or if they're starting to try new things, that's pretty much the most important time for trying different foods, and that also helps with getting them used to it earlier and then moving into the future. And so for that, you can get them started really early, and then after that, it kind of leads into their like nutritional impact, like we've been saying, is when they're growing, it's really important to start. It's nice to have them to get the good foods they need, but it's really important that first 2 to 4 years or so is to get them starting to eat new things, starting to get calorie-wise, and not only calories, but those are the quality content. If you start them with good quality foods at the beginning, that'll lead into when they start to get through their growth spurts after at the age of 8, especially when you get to early teens. That's when they're going to be needing to eat not only the most, but a wide variety, so that way they're set.
They're getting all everything they need.
And kind of to pull this all together, we talked about the environment playing a huge role, and we talked about sneaking snacks earlier. I think the snacking part gets demonized a lot more, when really we should be our starting point should be those 3 square meals a day as the actual plate and what you're feeding them. If you're giving them like just not good quality calories, they're not going to feel full, and then they're going to go to snack.
Right, that's true.
So starting with not only the environment they're growing up in terms of what the family is eating around them, because us as humans, we connect through food. So if you're going to eat, you're going to eat what you see everybody else eating for the most part. So if you see everybody else around you going for that McDonald's, as opposed to a nice rainbow plate like Lexi was alluding to earlier, then you're going to be more inclined to eat the McDonald's, and then you're probably not going to feel full in an hour, 2 hours, because you have all that fatty food, and you're going to be reaching for those low quality snacks.
And that's going to be when you start out with your kids young. Yes, it's easier and it's cheaper. I think I'm the only one with kids at the moment, but so still coming from a parent who has kids, I have 3 kids. So making sure that the first thing that you go to on a busy day isn't the fast food option. And that does take work, because it's a lot easier to run up to the corner and grab Chick-fil-A or McDonald's or whatever the nearest and you know the fast foods have like the family packs. Right. It's easy to run up to a Bojangles and get a 12-pack family chicken dinner.
Right. They say you can pick 3 things: quality, time, and then price. Yeah. And you can have 2 of the 3. So like fast food is going to be not very good quality, but necessarily, but very easy and very affordable.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, you want to watch that, and that's going to play a role in how your kids look at food later. And do they have trouble with picking the right foods when they go? Like, so as the kid gets into school and he can make his own choices, is he going to say, I'm gonna go home and eat dinner because I like a good home cooked meal and it tastes better? Or is he gonna say, oh, I gotta get that McDonald's chicken nuggets because that's what he grew up on? And it's very easy to get stuck on that, right? Like, it can be a kid's first go-to if that's not their only thing. So one thing with that I need to point out too, this is going to be really, really hard on some of you guys. If your kid has bad habits, yes, parents, you have that responsibility. It does lie on you. So as Zach said earlier, they're going to eat what their environment entails or allows them to eat. So if you have snacks in the pantry for them to sneak and get, well, yes, they're going to sneak and get them because it's easier, it's softer, and that sugary taste really feels really good going down, really tastes really, really good. Now, the sneaking part, because you're giving them and laying boundaries, but you're not instead of having to lay boundaries, if you had laid habits in the beginning, the boundaries wouldn't be getting broken.
I was about to say, it's very much so like the gym. Like the gym, you have to make a conscious effort at first to really go and overcome something difficult. Mm-hmm. It's just like this, except more often on a daily basis. And if you make it to form it as a habit to where you don't have to think about it, it just comes naturally, it's going to be way easier.
Oh, yeah. And that's with So when parents come and ask, they say, can you talk to my kid about this? I think one of the most important things when you parents, if you come to ask, we're going to talk to you. You buy the groceries. You know, you determined that that you could switch out this food for that food. You know, and sometimes hard lines in the sand help to create better habits growing up. And I think that's one of the things that's very hard, especially in the now where fast food is so easy. And it was, I guess if you're a parent now, chances are fast food was just hit its like major boom. McDonald's might have been thought of as bad, but it wasn't really demonized like it is now, right? The research hadn't really come to full play, and or the other fast food industries weren't so major. But now we know, we have the information to say we need to make sure that our kids are eating colorful foods, a protein source, and a good grain. And it's really, I've said this before, nutrition itself isn't as hard as we make it out to be. I guess the hardest part is that it's actually simpler than we want it to be. And we think that that weight loss process is a natural thing of life. Weight loss is not natural, but fueling is natural. And so in order to keep yourself from having to live a lifestyle of weight loss and losing weight, it's better to, or keeping your kid from having to live a lifestyle of weight loss and a better, healthier lifestyle so that they can afford to eat zebra cake for a snack from time to time, or for dessert or whatever, or pick up, go out to ice cream with their friends without feeling like, you know, they're 18 or 19 years old or 20, or even up to their 30s and 40s, they're like, oh, if I have ice cream,
yeah, just
so
building
bad.
a good relationship with food in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially with that, if they have a good habits at first, that builds up not only their like mental side of that, but it helps for the long run. If you eat bad food in the early years and even through teens and everything, you're going to have a lot harder time in the future with different chronic illnesses that used to not be a problem but now definitely are, and that's mainly due to food and lack of exercise and that whole like being sedentary. And so the easiest way to do that for most people is you eat every day. So if you eat really good at the beginning, then you're not going to have to worry in the future having to eat even more healthy and having to work on relearning those habits later on in life.
So now that we've kind of put the blame on the parents for the most part,
Yes.
some of the common questions that we get from parents of like, okay, it's my fault, how do I do better?
Right.
What would your take be on like calorie counting versus just eating healthy versus kind of tracking that?
All right, so that's another thing you kind of have a slippery slope with the kids of, all right, I guess the question I would say, I'm gonna put it this way, like, all right, so we got it, you know, my kid is now 12, 13, 14 years old. We didn't do those things in the beginning. How do we relearn and reshape that process, right? That's something that's super important, but it's very important that we walk that fine line between thinking that the issue is weight loss, right? We can't necessarily use those words. Like, the issue isn't weight loss. The issue isn't my kid is, my kid's, word for word, my kid's getting a little fluffy. How do I fix that? You know, there's a lot of variables to consider because weight gain itself comes sometimes prior to a growth spurt. So we can't dictate or really say why this much weight is put on. Yes, food matters. And yes, kids can gain weight. Yes, kids can lose weight. I'm not saying that's not the case. What I'm saying is when you're dealing with that age group with such a fragile mentality of what it looks like to be a teenager, you have to really hit the concept of health.
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, and building with that age group, mindful eating is really important. So being fully engaged in the eating experience can help you develop a positive relationship with the food, and that can help with some of those maybe internal signals of whether or not you're still hungry or whether or not you really like it. So I know it may be hard. Parents, as we're in a digital world, kids seem to be engaged with technology all the time. If you can try to sit down at the table without phones so you can really focus in on what you're eating in the moment, that may help sort of form these healthy relationships and teach kids how to know when they're actually hungry versus just being engaged with the technology and distracted while they're eating.
And parents have probably experienced that too if you've ever sat down and watched TV and ate and ate and ate and all of a sudden you look down and wow, I ate way more than I thought I did, just because you're distracted and you're not really feeling, like Lexi said, those signals of, okay, you need to stop, you're not hungry anymore, and you're just eating because it's force of habit that I watch TV and I eat, and that's the relationship that occurs.
Another one of those things is to, if you're going to do the snacking, to teach the kids to actually prepare the snack itself. Don't grab the bag of chips, the family-sized bag of chips, and go sit on the couch and eat out the bag. Actually take the chips, put them in a serving container, not the whole bag in the container, but a serving size in a serving container, and then set it up, and that way you go eat, and then there's an actual end point that you're not just, it's not an endless, bottomless pit of whatever the snack is. So I guess serving size, set your serving size up, and then go out and eat that till the serving size is done. And if teach your kid, if you find yourself hungry after a snack, maybe consider, all right, did I actually eat a meal prior to this? Snacking and or having a snack in itself is not bad. It's actually kind of appropriate. But snacking out of boredom can lead to other health issues outside of, or other health issues in general. There's nothing outside it.
One of the things I would say is working out is a little bit different than nutrition, even though they kind of go hand in hand, where you're usually doing it for like an hour a day and then you're done. Nutrition can be a lot more daunting because it's around the clock thing for the most part, which again can be daunting, but flip side of that, it can be daunting if you're not doing it well and you're doing yourself harm, how much harm that's actually going to do to you in the long term.
Yeah.
So think about it that way in terms of trying to build those healthy habits so it's not as difficult day to day.
And again, back to the relearning. So the relearning process is going to take time because you can't just say fast food is bad or snacking is bad, because that's actually not true. Like there's some benefits to being able to snack, and fast foods in themselves, yes, dietarily aren't the best food for you, but going out to have Chick-fil-A at a Bible study with your friend every now and then is not going to hurt, right? You can go hang out and have some ice cream and some buddies. The issue is what's going on around that part, so that part can be the lifestyle. So let's not demonize those things that we mentioned earlier, but let's really focus on capturing an entire lifestyle. So then I would say, even if you're trying to reshape, I think the reshape will still start from parents.
Yeah. And I think
I'm doing this, but not necessarily for weight loss, but because I spent so much time living an unhealthy lifestyle that I think I've started to persuade, I guess not persuade, but like show you how that's done. And this is the wrong lifestyle to lead. I want you to be able to play with your kids, your grandkids, and I want to be able to play with the grandkids in the future. Like if your kid's only 12 or 13, that's hard to consider. But what I'm saying is it's still something you would want to consider.
Yeah. And I think what's really important that we haven't kind of gone over yet is in today's day and age, it's not necessarily what all you're putting in your body. Serving size is really important. If you do, it's okay to go out to eat. But if you go out to eat, the general serving size that most restaurants give out is probably double, if not triple, what an actual serving size is. So with the whole relearning process and the learning in the first place, it's really important to show your kids and yourselves is what an actual serving size of food is. So that way, if they're ever on their own or when they get older, they know that necessarily a handful of one food is what you should be eating, and instead of eating double or triple that, or a whole bowl full, like Jason said, if you have a whole bowl full of something, that's not going to be the norm. And what training them that way, because that's what's really hard now, is everyone sees giant meals that take up a whole plate.
Yeah, you've seen the plates expand too.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And so that's another really big thing to kind of.
And even with soft drinks, like a small soft drink now is actually what used to be a medium when I was a kid. I'm not going to get back to realize how much older I am than you guys. But when I was a kid, small drinks were actually small drinks. Now those are storage containers. But now, like a small one, I saw it go. It went from a medium, a large went from being a large to a medium, and then from being a medium to a small, depending upon what restaurant you're there. And it's around the majority of them. So it's kind of crazy how big those soft drinks have gotten. And so you got to be careful with that. So I actually feel like we've hit a good amount of information, so we're not going to continue to overload you. We really appreciate you guys watching again with the four of us, Lexi and the boys, on this episode of BX Live at Lunch. You guys have anything to close with?
One practical tip based off of Thomas's, if you do go out to a restaurant and you are worried about those overly large portions, when you order it, you could ask the server to just box up half for you. That way you're not tempted to overeat during the meal, and then you already have a second meal for later, so that saves you time and prep while you're going home for another meal. So that might be an idea.
Zach, anything to close on?
I would say make sure that your plate is abundant of different colors. Make sure that the environment around your kid sets up your kid for success.
Thomas, anything to close with?
The only thing is that everyone's built different, so even with all we've said, every kid is going to be different. And so it's really important just to kind of tailor what they want and how you want them to eat to the individual, not necessarily everyone.
Yeah. So, and I do think it's important that the kid learns some individual responsibility, but also us as parents and as leaders, it's good for us to kind of set the tone of what that should look like. Good deal. So we really appreciate you guys watching this week's episode of Live at Lunch. We'll be back again next Wednesday with Letzi and the boys. It's going to be a thing. All right. We really appreciate you guys watching, and have a wonderful,
y'all
wonderful
later.
week.
Bye.